welcome to All Things Horse Farms. I am your host, Kelly Martin, and I am here with a very special guest,
Meghan Martin.
If you can't tell, she's my daughter, not my twin. Although I think we are getting really close in age.
A lot of people do think that we're sisters.
I know, isn't that so funny? Like, we go into places and they're like, "Are you sisters?" And then, "Are you twins?" I'm like, "Yeah."
You're like, yeah. I'm like, I'm just going to let her have a moment.
Yes, I am her twin. Tell me that one more time, please. Then I realized they're just being nice to me, but whatever.
I don't think so. I think some people actually think it.
Yeah, maybe if they're blind. But so we're going to talk about what makes a horse farm perfect.
Well, I don't know, horse farm expert. What does make a horse farm perfect?
Nothing. There's nothing perfect about a horse.
They're all wrong.
They're all wrong. So let's just start with that. A horse farm's not perfect for anybody, and that's just the truth. A lot of people, especially like when they get into house shopping, like you probably know with first-time home buyers, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to get my first home," and they're looking for that perfect home. No, that doesn't exist. You need to get something as close to what is perfect for you as you can, and then make it perfect for you. It's the same thing with a horse farm. So I have a lot of clients. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades. Yes, I am that old. I am really almost that old. I just don't age. But great skincare, I think it is.
Yeah,
I don't know what it
has
is.
to be.
It has to be.
That's what it is.
Or genetics. My mom looks very young too.
Yeah.
Anyways, off topic. But so yeah, there is no such thing as a perfect horse farm. But what we like to try to do for our clients is get to as perfect of what their needs are, which is going to cost them as least out of pocket as they want to spend or don't want to spend. So there's a lot of things we'll start with when looking for that perfect farm for somebody. And the first thing is going to be your foundation of a location. So location with people obviously is key. There are definitely people that can live anywhere, but even when they can live anywhere, their communities are in certain regions, whether they show horses or they're trainers or they're owners. There's certain key elements like airports, restaurants, friends, competitions that they try to be close to. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, like my whole take on there's no perfect horse farm, it kind of goes with the same thing as like when you go to find a horse, and any equestrian knows that there's no perfect horse. Every horse has a hole, whether it's I know with reining, whether it has like a lead change issue or one circle on like the left side's better than the right side. There always is going to be something that isn't perfect about the horse, and the same goes with houses. There's always going to be something that you can find, and even if it might be the perfect horse farm in that second, 5 years from now, your style could completely change. It's no longer perfect for you. But, I mean, I agree with Kelly. It goes a lot along the lines of location and kind of the amenities of what's around. Because someone who doesn't want to be anywhere close to the city, they would be fine with going to the outskirts, probably like a small town, and they'd be able to get quite a bit of acreage for a decent price if they're out in a more rural setting, versus somebody who is like, I still need to be able to get to the city. I still want to be able to go out to eat at a nice restaurant and not drive an hour to it, or my job requires me to do a lot of traveling. I need to be able to just hop on the airplane, and I can't drive 2 hours there and 2 hours back. I need to be closer to the city. So it does go a lot along the lines of location.
Definitely. Location is definitely key, but I've also found that, and we serve multiple states, so different regions, I get different comments from different people, but we'll take the state of Tennessee, for example, because a lot of people relocate to Tennessee, and a lot of people either buying their first horse farm or they're relocating animals or whatnot. So a lot of times I get people that come to me and they say, hey, I'm looking to relocate to Tennessee. I want 100 acres and I want, a barn that houses 20 horses, and I want a 3,000 square foot home, and I've got a budget of $1 million.
That's where you got me. I feel like someone like they'll come to you and they'll say, "Hey, I need an indoor arena with a 2,500 square foot home, and I need a 20 horse barn. My budget's $3 million." Like, okay, great. Where do you want to be? Nashville.
Can you go up?
Can you add a zero?
So, location, obviously, when you get to different states, some key location cities, and we'll just use Tennessee for the example since we're on it. Nashville is a great one to use for an example. If you're going to be right around Nashville, and especially in the more sought after areas like Franklin, Brentwood, Thompson Station, you're paying premium. And when I say premium, I'm talking about possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars per acre. You're paying hundreds of dollars per square foot. And when you start putting all those combination of items together, you're going to have a decent budget. I recently had somebody contact me that is looking, and they've got multiple houses all over the world, Europe, just all over the place. And they're looking for just a little getaway. And the conversation starts, well, we just want to be within, an hour or so of a city. Well, what they're really trying to say is they want to be within an hour of Nashville, not any city, because they don't want to be within an hour of Memphis. They don't want to be within an hour of Jackson. They don't, that's not what they meant, but they didn't know that's what they meant or didn't mean until you have more of a conversation with them. So their idea of a perfect horse farm is a main house and 2 guest house on there for their adult children, and then a barn that houses a couple horses and some land. It doesn't have to be a ton of land. And then I had a buyer who called, and he was an avid trail rider. All he wants to do is trail ride. So his ideal location is nowhere near what this person's ideal location is. His ideal location is, how close can I be to state land where I can ride thousands of acres? I want a property that backs right up to it. So, everything is a little bit different per client and what is a perfect horse farm. So, Meg, when you're talking with a client and you got them on the phone for the first time and you're trying to help them navigate through buying their first horse farm, how do you help them with that?
That's a really good question. It honestly depends on the person. If I have somebody who is seasoned in owning a horse farm, they're not going to need as much hand holding as somebody who's wanting to get into owning a horse farm. If I have somebody, they don't have a whole lot of experience, I'll kind of start off with the question of, what are you wanting to use this horse farm for? Are you just wanting some trail horses? Do you show horses? Or are you going to have a trainer lease out of your barn? Kind of just basic questions as far as what is your primary use going to be. Because if you just want a place that you can hold 2 good horses that you can just take on a trail ride, you don't got to worry about them. You don't need 50 acres and a 20 stall barn and a covered arena. You don't need that. You just need a decent barn that can hold the horses and some pastures, not barbed wire. Stop putting horses in barbed wire.
So what do you think makes a barn good versus a barn not good?
I think it just depends on what you're going to spend. Some people are completely fine with having dirt floors in their barn, dirt floors in their stalls. They don't need
dirt drains pretty well. Better than
they
concrete.
don't need the matted stalls. They don't need wash bays. they're good with just stand for the saddle rack. They don't need one built into the wall. So it depends on kind of what you're wanting to spend, because that's a perfectly acceptable barn if you're not wanting to spend a whole bunch and you don't need a fancy barn for fancy show horses. But some people, they like their concrete floors. They like having the matted stalls with the built-in drains. I forgot the name of them, but they're super nice, especially when you're cleaning stalls. Some people want the built-in wash bay with the hot water heater, so they have nice warm water for the horses in the winter. And they also want the heated lamps overhead so the horses can stay warm. But someone who, like, they want their horse to grow a winter coat to grow fur, they don't need the heated lamps because they're not showing. There's no need for that. The one, did I say the furry
Grow
one?
fur.
They don't need it.
I didn't
But,
know
like,
horses grew fur.
Hair. The furry horse, everybody. But like, to me, if I could like go custom pick my barn, I would have concrete aisles. I would have a wash bay with its with hot water for the hot and cold water because summertime. I would have my tack room with like the built-ins, like just like super nice. Like stained wood, like wood beams up on the top of the barn. Like we'd make it super fancy.
Stamped concrete. Or just the rubber pavers, like straight down the aisle. That would be really good.
Oh, what's that one? There's a machine for flies. What's it called?
Oh, the fly sprayer.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
These are all little luxuries that you can add to your properties. For me, like if I have a client come into me and they're like, hey, I'm looking to buy a horse farm. When I'm interviewing them, I'll go through questions with them. My first question is going to be, have you ever had a horse farm? Yes or no is going to be the answer, obviously. Or sometimes it's, well, I haven't personally, but my parents did, or this or that. This is my first one as an adult. The next question I ask them is if they currently have horses and what they use their horses for. Would be key, because somebody like you hit on who has show horses, they may or may not be acceptable with a barn that is the same style barn as somebody who has trail horses, depending on what type of show horses. So
I feel like it goes the same way, vice versa. Like someone with the trail horses, they still might be like, you know what, I can spend the money. I want to have a really nice barn for my horses to stay in.
Exactly. In fact, I sold a property not too long ago, and she was an avid trail rider. The barn was phenomenal, and they had the fly spray system in there. She had the covered arena. She had all of those things.
That was a very nice horse farm. I remember that horse farm.
Yeah, it was a really nice horse farm. So, I always ask the client, what's the most important to you? 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a horse person, the first thing that's important to them is the land, because they cannot change it, the region. Like if they're looking at a state like Tennessee, for example, you're going to get 3 very different regions depending on if you're in West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, or East Tennessee. A lot of the trail riders really prefer East Tennessee. There's a lot of avid trail riding clubs over there. Same with Middle Tennessee, but Middle Tennessee has a lot of your English riders, walking horses, and then West Tennessee does have a lot of mixed disciplines
I
with.
feel like West Tennessee has a lot of roping, cow
that's what
reining.
I was gonna say. They do. They have a lot. They have a lot of roping, barrel racing, reiners. Obviously, they have a big English clientele as well. Like there's a really cute area outside of Memphis called Eads, Tennessee. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's got the 4-rail fencing all over the place. It's a huge horse community there. There's lots of horse communities in Middle Tennessee. It's considered like the heart of horse country of Tennessee. However, Middle Tennessee, you're going to have a pretty healthy budget to really get anything. East Tennessee is probably the second most expensive area. You got to be really used to driving windy roads with no shoulders. Some of those switchbacks, I would not want to drive a truck and trailer on. But
Okay. I mean, with all this talk about what the perfect horse farm looks like and where it is. As someone who sells them on a daily basis, multi-millions worth, what would your perfect horse farm be?
Well, if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, it would be completely different than what it would be today. So, 5 years ago, my perfect horse farm would be as many acres as I could possibly have. So, hundreds of acres with trails, gated entrance, a covered pen, barn for mares having babies, tons of pastures, a 5-bedroom house for all of my kids, and a covered arena with great dirt that I can do stopping in. Now, as a empty nester.
You still have a kid in your house.
Okay, he doesn't count. So as an almost empty nester, my ideal horse farm is completely different than what it was 5 years ago. So my ideal horse farm would actually be all one unit. So it would be gated entrance, definitely not hundreds of acres. It would be more like probably 20 to 30 stalls that I could have for my retired horses, my horses that stay at home, and my mamas and my babies. And then run-ins, pastures. I would have pastures for my mamas and their babies, and then for my weanlings, my yearlings, and then my 2-year-olds before they go off to training. I would have a completely indoor arena that would be attached to my barn. I would have living quarters attached to my barn. So if I didn't have to go outside ever for a long time, that would be totally fine with me.
Can I have it all just like a giant bridge?
Yeah, like one big barn.
One like a
Like a barn
dominium?
Yeah, like a barn dominium, but like
with the pathway to a barn. We sold a house like you sold a house like that. In Chattanooga one time, I remember me and you went on the listing appointment because at the time I was like 13. I am a baby, but I was like a baby. And this wonderful expert over here took me on this listing appointment. And gosh, I want to say it was in Georgia. And she, I think she rode dressage. She had her barn, and her barn led right into her house. And it was a barn dominium with like the horses attached, like in the front. I guess is a way to put it.
Yeah. No, that is
you remember what I'm talking about now?
I do.
Yeah.
There was also a main home that was on that property as well. So that was more like, I guess, like the guest quarters.
Okay. But it's like same concept of what you're wanting.
Yeah, no, it was, I used to think, I don't want that because what if I have to sell it? I don't care anymore. Because that is the problem. As a real estate agent, I do have to advise, if you put everything under one roof, you're going to have a really hard time. Not that people don't want it, but getting financing for it.
That, and it takes a special group of people who want it.
Yeah, definitely. You've got definitely a special group of people that want to live under the same roof as their horses and have their covered arena. Just very special people. But more importantly,
not special in like a bad way. Special in just like a different like. I mean, personally, like I would have a ball doing that.
Yeah, I'd love it. Think about the kids; they could play all the time, and you don't have to worry about the climate. But I do have to advise, from a real estate standpoint, financially speaking, it's a very limited number of people that could buy. Because again, financing horse farms is extremely tricky. A typical loan is going to be a residential loan. So the value has to be in the residence, the home. It can't exceed the value of what the barn and the land is. And that is where it gets very complicated with horse farms and selling them and pricing them and coming up with the right clientele for being able to market that property too. Which
isn't it tricky with the financing as well when you have a ton of acreage?
It can be. Yeah. A lot of banks don't like to touch anything more than 40 acres.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a gray area, but it's a percentage. It's kind of the same thing with like a specialty property, like a lake home. The value can't be a higher percentage in the land or the structures versus the house. The house has to have the majority of the value. and the bank has a certain percentage that falls under.
Okay. And what do you do? I know you're not a lender, so you can't really advise on it. But like, what do you do in the cases that like the horse property? It's, I guess, like the barn and the land and the arena, all are worth more than the house. What kind of loan would you go and look for?
Well, that's where it gets complicated, and these are some tough questions I have to have conversations what I have to have with sellers and that happens a lot when I go on listing appointments for horse properties. When somebody's going to sell their horse farm and they've spent millions of dollars on their barns and their arenas, and their house is worth maybe 200,000-300,000. It's a complicated situation because typically speaking, when you're buying a property, you have a couple different types of loans. You have your home loan, which falls into a few different loan categories. You have land loans, which with a land loan, typically speaking, I'm sure there's some specialty loans out there that would be atypical, but in a typical land loan, there cannot be a structure on the land. So anytime that there is a structure as a barn, an arena, it's no longer considered a land loan. So you can't get a typical land loan. So it gets complex, and that's where
it does get complex. Because I remember a few weeks ago, I spoke with a lender, and I asked him that question about land loans and if there's a structure on the property, can I not get a land loan? And he said that if the appraiser goes out there and they deem the structure non-livable, then they can still do the land loan, but it has to be able to be deemed non-livable.
Yeah, and I've had lenders tell me if there's a barn on the land, we can't do the land loan.
I think it just really depends.
Yeah, it just depends. They have different guidelines. So back to your question on what do you do for financing? A lot of times you need to have a portfolio loan. People can borrow against their retirement funds or their cash or their private equity. They have private lenders that they get. It's usually like a portfolio loan. And some of the cases when we're selling businesses within our farms, people can get business loans when there's enough revenue that is coming in and they haven't offset that on their tax returns, and it does show that the business is profitable. They can essentially get a business loan based off the profits that the company or that the horse farm is yielding. So again, it gets complicated, and it's a case by case basis. So that goes back to that horse farm person who wants to buy their horse farm, and that's the big question: is are you buying the horse farm because you've got a couple trail horses in your backyard, or are you buying a horse farm because you're running a business, or are you buying a horse farm because you want to put a trainer in to run a business? And that's stage one of questions. Stage two is what type of business, what type of riding, what type of, if the answer is, I just have a couple horses, we don't do anything with them, they're pets, or we just do trail riding and we haul to the trails. That's easy. You can almost find the property, the house with the land and give them a person that does a barn, a custom barn for them. But when you got the person that's like, I'm a roper, I'm a reiner, I'm a jumper, they need certain size arenas, they need certain footing, they need certain areas for their cattle, for their chutes. Like everything matters to them, and if it's not there, they have to pay for it out of pocket, and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So, all of that is going to be dependent on the client. But for me as a reiner, I look at the ground. Like, that's so important to me. I'll walk into an arena and be like, yep, this is good. And though I can stop it in, I'm good with it. But if it's something that you can't stop in, it can be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix. So,
yeah. And it's just things to think about, because if I was a buyer and you were a buyer and we both went to look at the same horse farm and say, like I did dressage and you do reining, I walk in there and say the arena is meant for a dressage discipline. I'd walk in there and be like, this is perfect. I don't have to do a single thing. You would walk in there and you'd be like, okay, well, I could make it work, but I'm going to have to put a lot of money into it. So there's no perfect horse farm.
There is no perfect horse farm. As a matter of fact, I probably sell more imperfect farms, and people make them perfect for them. And then when they go to sell them, it doesn't work for the next person. And then that next person needs to make it work. And it's funny because when I talk to non-horse people, they just think horse is one language, but
It's not.
it's not. It is like I said it before in another series that we were doing. Horse people are like a continent, right? Like you talk about horse and it's a continent, and within that continent is a bunch of different countries that speak totally different languages. If I meet with somebody that's a hunter under saddle person and I'm a reiner, we're going to be talking two very different languages.
Very different.
What's important, what's not important, how, if your horse has turnout, if your horse doesn't have turnout.
Yeah, not even like how, like the footing and all of that. I mean, the tack, they have completely different tack than we have in the reining world, or like what they feed their horses. They feed their horses and give them completely different supplements than what we give our horses. And the shoeing, they have completely different shoes than we put on our horses because God forbid they put sliding plates on their on their jumper.
Sliding plates on a jumper
They're gonna
would be bad.
sliding into the jump.
Yeah, that'd be very bad.
That would be very bad. But it's just it kind of goes, if you look at your normal residential house, majority of the time you're going to walk into a house and you're going to be like, I would have done this differently. I would have chose this paint color, or I would have put hardwood where there's carpet.
Yeah.
You just expand that to a larger scale with horse farms.
Larger scale.
Like, okay, well, I would have put different footing, or I would have maybe done the stall fronts a little differently. I don't need stall fronts that go like 5 feet in the air. My horse is only 5 foot tall. So
Right.
it's
like
just
minis.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So, I would say that the key takeaways to finding your perfect horse farm, if you're out there on a hunt looking for that perfect place, is what's perfect to you. Ask do an outline, pros, cons, what's perfect to you, what is an absolute must that you cannot change because it's outside of your, I would call like a cash budget, that you don't have the excess cash to be able to be like, if it's not in my mortgage, I don't have the access money to be able to put it in. Like, so let's say a covered pen, like let's say that you have to have a covered pen to get done what you need to get done. And if this property that you buy doesn't have a covered pen, but you don't have $500,000 that you could then inject into it to build your covered pen, well, then you really need to put that as your first priority and build everything else around it. So knowing what you need, knowing the location where you need that, and being realistic about your budget. If it's outside of your budget, can you change your location and get more for your budget? Or what adjustments can you make? What might you be able to go without? Or maybe you realizing that you can get a lot more than what you had thought. Do you want to increase your budget? Do you want to change some things? Those are the things I would go through and figure out what my key points are. I would also make sure, I highly recommend, if you're not already using an agent from Home and Farms Realty, because obviously that's where the best horse farm agents are, highly recommend you're with an agent who knows how to speak your language, and not necessarily the listing agent. Always remember that the listing agent is there to represent the seller and the seller's best interest. So you do want somebody representing your best interest. Not to say the listing agent can't facilitate a transaction. They definitely can. But if you're looking in a broad area, don't go agent to agent to agent on a listing. You may want to, get somebody that's going to represent you, that can travel with you, or has a team in different areas that you're looking that can help, because they're going to understand some of the local things. Like, I'll give you an example. If you're looking in Tennessee, we're going to understand. If you're in West Tennessee, you're going to get a sandy ground. If you're in Middle Tennessee, you're going to get a rocky ground. If you're in East Tennessee, you're going to get a lot of clay or shale, and you have to be careful about stuff like that. So we understand like some of the way the water runs, or different areas that are good for different things. You're going to want to have agents that are there and understand your needs, can speak the language with you. So thanks for tuning in. And remember, if you want to support us, we want to support you and be able to bring on extra special guests, please subscribe, comment. If you've got podcast series that you would like to hear from us, please let us know. People that you'd like to see us interview, tag them. Make sure to share us with your friends. Subscribe. Helps us bring great content to you. And we look forward to seeing you guys in episode 2.
Bye.